Let's discuss this all with Washington Post columnist Josh Rogin and the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor. Ambassador Taylor, let me start with you because the former director of national intelligence under Obama, retired General James Clapper, said something that reflected a conversation that is really going on, as you know, intensely among intelligence circles in the West right now. Take a listen.
I personally think he's unhinged. I really worry about his acuity and balance right now. And, you know, here's a guy that really has his finger on potentially on the nuclear button. So that's, to me, bears close watching.
Look, I don't need to tell you, as former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Putin's been a murderous thug for decades. That hasn't changed. But what seems to have changed is his calculations, his strategy, his emotional outbursts. Do you think that he has lost his mind in some way?
Jake, I've never met this man, but all indications are that he is not in full control of his emotions, of his thought patterns. He's got this kind of almost fierce anger, fierce hatred for President Zelensky. President Zelensky, young politician, showing the world what leadership really is, and President Putin doesn't know how to deal with that. President Putin does not understand Ukrainians or this Ukraine.
Josh, what is the chance that he's acting this way? You know, the madman theory that we used to say about Trump, like, you never know what he's going to do. He wants to keep world leaders, you know, afraid of him. Is there a chance that that's what he's doing?
I'm sure that's part of what he's doing. There's no doubt that over the years, Vladimir Putin has become more erratic. Part of that is strategy. Part of that is, as Ambassador Taylor said, he's not getting good information. But part of that is that he's accumulated power, total power over the Russian state. So he can afford to do whatever he wants within that state. And, you know, it doesn't really make sense that he's suicidal. In other words, he can be evil without being irrational. So what we have to do is we have to watch his actions. And his actions are that he will escalate and escalate until he finds resistance. That's a rational way of doing business, evil as it may be. So I don't think we can make our policy based on the idea that he's a crazy person. We have to see him as an erratic leader who has ultimate power inside of his own country, who's willing to take risks. And that's not crazy, that's just bad, that's just threatening.
And Ambassador, over the weekend, Putin put Russia's nuclear forces on high alert. Here's what Senator Rubio, the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, here's how he assessed it. He wrote, Putin's legitimacy built on image as the strong leader who restored Russia to superpower after the disasters of the 90s. Now the economy is in shambles and the military is being humiliated, and his only tools to reestablish power balance with the West is cyber and nukes. Do you agree?
I think what he's doing there, Jake, is performance. He is, again, trying to intimidate, trying to bully probably President Zelensky, maybe President Biden, with this rattle of the nuclear saber. So I think this is something, his nuclear forces are already on alert. That's not a new thing. This is a performance.
What do you think about the idea that there are people within Putin's circle who don't think that invading Ukraine was a good idea? We saw him berate one of his intelligence chieftains in front of the cameras the other day. Is this somebody who just won't even listen to a contrary point of view?
Vladimir Putin has been in power 10 years longer than Xi Jinping. There is no dissent. He's disabled all of the pieces inside of his own government that could challenge him. So if you're inside that system, there's no upside in even saying something. So no one would say something. You would die. You would go to jail. Your whole family would go to jail. So all that means is that we can only follow him. We can only deal with him. All of these side talks, all of these people he's throwing at the Belarusian border to talk with the Ukrainians, they don't have any agency. They don't have any power. All they can do is report back to Putin. So we have to message to him. And that's a combination of diplomacy. It's a combination of military moves. And as he goes up the escalation ladder, we have to be very careful about that, but not allow it to paralyze us. He's playing a game of escalating to see what we'll do in return. And we have to respond proportionally, but not overreact. And that's a delicate and difficult thing to do with a guy who's mass murdering civilians all over Ukraine.
Although I should note the Biden administration has not escalated our nuclear threat level, which seems to suggest they...
Well, that's because they think, and they're right, that while we failed to deter Putin from invading Ukraine, he's still deterred against attacking us.
Right.
We would still win that war. He knows that. Again, he's evil, but he's not suicidal.
All right, Josh Rogin, Ambassador Taylor, good to see both of you.